Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week, we're taking a look at Wind River.
I've been traveling, flying on south again. How could it be? It seems as though a moment ago was reaping the seeds that I sowed.
Set in the Wind River Indian Reservation in the mountains of Wyoming, it tells the story of a homicide of a young girl. She's found by a hunter, Jeremy Renner, and the FBI get called in. And ultimately leads to this very, very captivating end. It's brilliant. It's very haunting as a film, though. Very kind of desolate in its feel and brutal film at points.
So this is Taylor Sheridan, and this is Taylor Sheridan writing and directing. Now, this is technically part of his American Frontier trilogy. It's the last one, the first one being Sicario from Denis Villeneuve, the second one being Hell or High Water. But Wind River is the only one in that trilogy that he has directed. And what I love about Taylor Sheridan's work is that he really gets the whole like neo-Western vibe. He really gets that like embracing the American values but putting it in a slightly different spin. Like for Wind River, the aesthetic of taking what we think of as the West, you know, like riding out on the Dust Bowl or the sands on the back of a horse, and instead for Wind River, giving us like the horse in the beginning, but ultimately the snowmobile gliding across the ice and gliding across the snow.
Which is brilliant. Those scenes are brilliant. I love those kind of, reminded me a bit of a more serious Fargo with those kind of panoramic shots of the mountains.
It's gorgeous. It's really cool. And like it still works. Like the values of what make a Western are still here. And I think that of that trilogy, Wind River is probably the most efficient film. Like it's the most lean of the three films. It's a pretty simple plot. Like the actual narrative is very, very simple. But what that lets him do is it lets the film breathe a little bit, and it allows him to have slightly more nuanced character moments, and it lets him really get into some of the tone and the aesthetic value. I mean, this film's only 1 hour 40.
And it goes so quickly.
It does. It flies by.
And it kind of makes you want more, but you're also satisfied with the outcome. It's one of them. It does it really well. Like that. Look at Sicario, and I know it wasn't directed by him, but Sicario, where there's quite a lot of back and forth. There's a bit of like, who's he, what's he doing, you know, what's there, and it obviously leads to this kind of end scene that's very it kind of crescendos towards this huge end scene, similar to that. Whereas Wind River also has like a big action thriller packed end scene, but the way it evolves to that moment is very subtle. It's very subtle in its use of, as you said, characterization and other elements of the film as well. It's very well done.
That scene you're talking about there, you know, when they ultimately go over to confront the guys and, you know, investigate them before the trailers before the shootout starts.
Brilliant.
Do you know that starts with about 30-40 minutes of the film left?
Really?
Yeah, this film, so like it's got that slow pacing and that sort of confident slow pacing, but it does not come with the bloat that often comes with a slow-paced film. It's so lean.
What I like about it is it in terms of the pacing, it leads up to this moment, this moment where they're all like guns out against each other. Why you what's it called, flanking me? And you immediately, your hairs in your back are going, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then, you know, Olsen goes, you know, everyone calm down. I've got jurisdiction. I'm the FBI. And you think, oh yeah, okay, we're all cool. You know, let's go and see this trailer. Let's go and fill out the rest of the film. Not expecting, you know, that Mexican standoff to come back again. Everyone just absolutely decimates each other. But what actually was quite interesting about that scene is the use of like almost like ragdoll physics to kind of, because I you know, lever action rifles, I assume that they use quite a large caliber bullet, especially for something like hunting. And you could just see you look at the guy in the trailer, that like kind of ragdoll physics that he absolutely blasted over. And it's sometimes you just see someone get shot in the shoulder and fall down, but for me, it just felt very, very real.
The performances are great. Like, so if we've got in the lead, obviously, Jeremy Renner. And I think
he's brilliant.
He does surprisingly that whole like Western hero thing very, very well. I was actually quite shocked at how well he plays this. Typically, I don't think of him as a great leading man.
I never used to like Jeremy Renner, but then recent performances, and especially this is one of my favorites with him. He's brilliant.
He's fantastic, and then he gets to play off of Elizabeth Olsen, who
Yeah.
I think she plays an outsider really, really
Yeah,
like sort of
the rookie. But what I like about her character, and the contrast of characters, is she's kind of like quite emotional upon first appearance, but she's also got that intelligence, the quick thinking to a situation, the ease to like kind of how to kind of quell a situation. And you contrast that with Corey Lambert, Jerry Renner's character, where he is very he's very emotionally stunted because of his history, because of his daughter. He's very kind of he kind of puts a block up there, emotional block, but at the end, you have that there's two amazing scenes, sorry, where he has that kind of emotion about him. He is a character that deals with grief very well. Like I think grief can be really hard to portray, and if anyone's seen something like Afterlife, for example, a TV show, like it really handles grief well. And I think in terms of this, because you've only got a small kind of film to actually do it in, the way you kind of that scene where you don't throw away anger because you'll get rid of all the memories from the first steps to the last conversation you had. Just that moment and that conversation, you got to give credit to the screenwriting for that as well. Is how it handles grief with that kind of anger approach, as opposed to something where it's all about like kind of sad and everything, but he deals with the pure anger, and you can see that in his kind of character. There's a lovely contrast between the two. I think the chemistry is really good in this.
That segues perfectly into, I think, the unsung hero of this film, who is Gil Birmingham, who plays Martin. And he's the guy who loses his daughter.
Brilliant.
He's incredible. Obviously, he's in quite a lot of stuff. He was in Hell or High Water as well. He's fantastic in Hell or High Water. But here he gets to play that like really difficult, grieving father role. And I love the scene in which Elizabeth Olsen turns up, and she's sort of pushing and wanting to ask questions and get the information out, and she's not really treating them with the sort of the care and humanity that they sort of need in that moment. And he just stone faces her, sends her to go and talk to his wife, who's obviously self-harming at the time. And then the payoff being that seconds later, when Jeremy Renner rocks up, his friend, somebody he does actually trust and someone who does understand and is in a situation to really get this difficult grieving that he's going through, he breaks down.
It's a brilliant scene, and even towards the scene at the end where he's like, "Oh, it's my death mask," and he's like, I had this, Chip called me again, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it, and I just want to sit here and will he sit me longer? It's brilliant. He really is brilliant.
I love that, like, the traditional thing with a Western, right, is to take, well, it's not only to paint, like, Native American Indian people as a negative sort of villainous type. And I love that that's turned on its head here. But more importantly, I think that they take the traditional trope of, like, stoic men and stoic cowboys who are devoid of emotion, and he twists that as well, and he really lets these sort of large, very masculine characters feel deep emotion.
They have a heart, despite, as I was saying about Jeremy Renner earlier, and how he's a kind of cold-hearted. There are those scenes there where he absolutely comes out. He even opens up with an FBI agent he's never met before, and like there's tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry." It's absolutely 100%. The sound of this film is something that caught me on the second watch massively. I enjoyed it first time, don't get me wrong, but second time, the soundscape is so hollow and distant, and it's kind of really fit into the kind of brutal subject matter as mentioned. And at the same time, you have this amazing like kind of music. I mentioned drones in a few films that we do lately, but drones work so well in film, right? So you got actually Nick Cave and Warren Ellis who work, and they're in a band together. And you've got these kind of like these drony kind of strings in the background, and that they're kind of backed by these kind of melancholic male vocals like this. And you just got this string that's going like all the way out, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant because even in those kind of landscape shots that you've got going on, that you're driving towards the next stage of the investigation, oh god, it pulls you down. But equally, and testament to the both, equally you've got these really poignant moments where they're on about the grief, where they're on about the kind of how to get better, and they're turning on its head. And I'm not saying it's like necessarily upbeat, but that kind of melancholic tones and those drones turn around, and they actually bring something around that kind of brings a lot more like positive emotion or like kind of nostalgic emotion to the scene. It's fucking amazing what those two have done, Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. Shout out to them.
Yep, it's great stuff. I think that on the whole, Wind River is a really great film. I do have to say, I don't think it's going to top anybody's like list of favorite films ever. And even in this American Frontier trilogy, it maybe isn't the best one, but that doesn't deny its quality. And like I think it's a credit to Taylor Sheridan. I think it's a credit to his writing work as well as his directing work. I do want to see more of like what he does.
Same.
So anyway, there is Wind River. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Wind River. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week, where we're taking a look at Lost in Translation.
Finally doing it.
Until then, you can get watching.